Nobody believed Kalo, not when he said the stars were speaking to him, and certainly not when he claimed they were leading him to a treasure hidden beneath the sea. For years, Kalo had been known as the fisherman who could no longer fish. A violent storm had changed everything. One terrible night, a crashing wave threw him across the deck of his boat, leaving his legs permanently paralyzed. The ocean that once fed his family had become a daily reminder of what he had lost. Every morning, he sat at the harbor, watching other fishermen sail away, while he remained behind. Some people pitied him, others laughed at him, most simply ignored him. But every evening, while the village slept, Kalo studied something unusual. Ancient star maps. They had belonged to his grandfather. The old fisherman had guarded them his entire life, and left them to Kalo before he died. Most people thought the maps were nothing more than faded pieces of paper, yet Kalo remembered his grandfather's final words. One day, these stars will show you something the world cannot see. For years, Kalo never understood what that meant, until one unforgettable night. The sky was crystal clear. The stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across black velvet. As Kalo compared the heavens to one of the ancient maps, he noticed something strange. A pattern, a symbol, a series of markings hidden among the constellations. His heart began pounding. He pulled out another map, then another. The same markings appeared again. This wasn't decoration. It was a message, a set of directions, a path leading somewhere far beyond the fishing routes used by the villagers. Kalo barely slept. For weeks, he studied every map, every symbol, every star. The more he searched, the more convinced he became. His grandfather had left behind clues to a treasure lost beneath the sea. The next morning, he shared his discovery. The villagers burst into laughter. Treasure? One fisherman mocked. You can't even walk properly, and you want to hunt for treasure. The crowd laughed even harder. Kalo said nothing. He simply wheeled himself away. But one person noticed something different. A young fisherman named Toma. Unlike everyone else, Toma saw determination in Kalo's eyes. That evening, he visited Kalo's small home. You really believe those maps? Toma asked. Kalo nodded. I don't just believe them. He placed a finger on the faded markings. I understand them. For a long moment, Toma stared at the maps. Then he smiled. Then let's find out who's right. For the first time in years, Kalo felt hope. A week later, before sunrise, they quietly left the harbor in Toma's small fishing boat. The sea was calm at first. The journey seemed easy, but the ocean had other plans. By the second day, dark clouds gathered overhead. Powerful winds battered the boat. Massive waves crashed against the wooden hull. Toma fought to keep control. Several times, he looked at Kalo. We should turn back. Kalo shook his head. No, the young fisherman sighed. Kalo, we've already come farther than anyone else. What if the maps are wrong? Kalo looked toward the stars emerging between the storm clouds. They're not. Toma wasn't convinced, but he kept rowing. The next day was even worse. Food was running low, the weather remained dangerous, and still, there was no sign of treasure. That night, frustration finally exploded. Toma slammed his hand against the boat. Enough. Kalo looked up. I'm risking my life for a story told by an old man who died years ago. The words hung in the air. For the first time, Kalo had no answer. The silence felt heavier than the ocean itself. Finally, Toma sat down. Neither spoke another word. As darkness covered the sea, Kalo opened the maps one final time. His eyes moved carefully across the symbols. Then suddenly, he froze. A detail he had overlooked. A star alignment. A missing piece. His breathing quickened. He looked toward the horizon, then back at the map, then toward the sky again. A smile slowly appeared on his face. We're close. Toma laughed bitterly. Of course, we are. No, Kalo replied. This time, I know. Reluctantly, Toma followed the new direction. Hours passed. Then something happened. The water changed. The moonlight reflected differently across the surface. An enormous circular patch of sea glowed faintly beneath them. Both men stared. Neither had ever seen anything like it. Kalo's voice trembled. We found it. Toma grabbed a rope. If you're wrong, I'm never listening to another star story again. With that, He tied the rope around his waist and dove into the water. Kalo waited. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then another. Nothing. His heart pounded. The silence was unbearable. Suddenly, a splash. Toma surfaced. His eyes were wide. His face was pale. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Then he raised his hand. Inside it was a gold coin covered in coral. Kalo's breath caught. Toma stared at the coin, then back at Kalo. You were right. Without waiting, Toma dove again and again. Each time, he returned with more evidence. Pieces of ancient wood, fragments of pottery, silver artifacts. Finally, during one last dive, he discovered it. The remains of a massive ship resting on the ocean floor. A ship that had been lost for centuries. When Toma surfaced, tears mixed with seawater on his face. We found it, Kalo. The disabled fisherman closed his eyes. Not because of the treasure, not because of the gold, but because, after all these years, his grandfather had been right. The stars had been telling a story, and he had finally learned how to listen. When they returned home, the village couldn't believe what they saw. The same people who laughed at Kalo now gathered around him in amazement. The fisherman they had mocked had accomplished what none of them could. But when people asked Kalo how he found the treasure, his answer never changed. It wasn't strength. It wasn't luck. It was faith. Years later, people still talked about the lost treasure hidden beneath the sea. But the treasure wasn't the most valuable thing Kalo found. The real treasure was proving that a person's limitations do not decide their future, because sometimes the world looks at what you've lost, while destiny looks at what you still have. And sometimes, the person everyone doubts becomes the one who changes the story forever.